Until the 2025 German federal elections, the AfD was an oddity in the global far-right space. Most people couldn't name the leaders of the AfD in contrast to other leaders of the European far-right. With the rise of the AfD in the polls, people learned the name of the AfD's candidate for chancellor in that election, Alice Weidel. Who people don't know, however, is this man, her former colleague Alexander Gauland. He is perhaps the most important figure to understand the AfD, however, as his background is the main reason his party is so different from other right-wing populist political parties in Europe. Eberhard Alexander Gauland was born in 1941 in Chemnitz, today in the state of Saxony. His roots point to an inclination towards right-wing politics from the very start. His father worked at the Saxon royal court in Dresden, and Gauland himself grew up in an upper-class part of the city. Although he was born and raised in the East, he fled to West Germany after his graduation from high school. The years he spent in the West proved to be crucial for Gauland and his political future, contributing to his ideological antics. The most important of these contributions was his first political experience, where he was involved with the youth wing of the CDU, Germany's center-right party. Despite his specialization in international law, he pursued a career mostly in journalism, history, and most importantly, politics. In 1973, he joined the CDU. A year later, he started to work in the CDU's parliamentary group in the German Bundestag, the federal parliament. This would prove a turning point for his political future, as the Bundestag was where he met with his future boss, Walter Wallmann. For the next decade or so, Wallmann's rise would mean Gauland's rise. In 1977, the CDU won the local elections in Frankfurt and Wallmann was appointed mayor by the CDU majority. Gauland became Wallmann's right-hand man in the city government. Wallmann's later but brief transition to national politics dragged Gauland into it. After Chancellor Helmut Kohl created the Ministry of Environment in 1986, Wallmann became the first minister of the department. His tenure as a minister was cut short when the CDU, led by him in the state, won the Hesse state elections in 1987. Wallmann continued to govern Hesse until 1991, when he was defeated in the elections. A key feature that makes Gauland is that he is a pragmatic politician instead of an ideological one. Talleyrand, ever the Machiavellian figure, became a role model for Gauland in politics. Despite the CDU's dislike of Jürgen Habermas due to his left-wing rhetoric, Gauland lobbied the city of Frankfurt to issue Habermas an award. He did not disagree with the CDU in blaming the 1968 generation for their way of dealing with Germany's Nazi past, multiculturalism, migration, gender, and other cultural issues. Nonetheless, he was able to create divisions among the CDU with his support of Habermas. Moreover, Gauland publicly congratulated Habermas for freedom of thought, while simultaneously praising former NSDAP and Wehrmacht officers alongside. In so doing, Gauland made Habermas a tool for normalizing far-right rhetoric. Gauland even normalized the politicization of cultural affairs under Kulturpolitik, setting the ground for polarizing the electorate. That stance on Kulturpolitik, one that Gauland preserved for a long time, became part of his wider strategy to garner votes for his party later on. In fact, Kulturpolitik served as the party's main strategy for elections to come. In both of Wallmann's roles, Gauland served as his right-hand man. The 1991 state elections seemingly marked the end of Wallmann's career, but Gauland saw an opportunity in German reunification, an ace up his sleeve thanks to his early career in journalism. Although called a reunification, the process resembled a Western annexation of East Germany, especially visible at the institutional level. When East German institutions were inherited by the West, many of the institutions needed a decommunization process. This process required people who were not affiliated with East Germany's governing Socialist Unity Party, which had far-reaching tentacles in East German society. Due to the party-centric authoritarian nature of the former regime, many East Germans were affiliated with the party. New blood was needed to complete the process, and many West Germans became heads of former East German institutions. Alexander Gauland was among those people. He became editor of the former Socialist Unity Party newspaper Märkische Allgemeine in 1990. His responsibility was creating an independent newspaper from the ashes of the old state-run one. During his tenure, he observed the people from eastern states and their characteristics. His experience would be beneficial when he founded the AfD, later to become its leader. He retired from the newspaper in 2005. Also in 2005, Germany elected Angela Merkel, the first woman to become chancellor in German history and the first from the former East Germany. Even though Merkel and Gauland came from the same party and shared East German roots, their worldviews were different. Merkel belonged to the centrist wing of the party. She supported phasing out nuclear energy, ending military conscription, having a multicultural society, and the EU bailout. Gauland, on the other hand, opposed these policies and claimed that the CDU did not stand for principles anymore. Such differences in opinion culminated in Gauland and some like-minded members forming a group within the CDU, the so-called Berlin Circle. One day, a person close to Merkel met with the group and reportedly looked down on them. When a so-called Merkel envoy made clear that the Berlin Circle had no prospects of being influential in Merkel's CDU, this became the last straw for Gauland. In 2013, he resigned from the party which he was a member of for 40 years. He met with other dissatisfied members of the CDU, Bernd Lucke and Konrad Adam, to found a new political party. Thus, the Alternative für Deutschland was born. Initially more about opposing the euro and the bailout of Greece, the party expanded its focus when the mood in Germany changed 2 years later with Merkel's decision to welcome more asylum seekers. The party's position on the ideological spectrum started to shift to the right. The AfD embraced anti-immigrant positions, and center-right figures of the party became uneasy about the situation, with some leaving the party. However, one center-right figure embraced the radicals in the party, Gauland himself. From his newspaper experience, he understood that radicalism is useful and could be used in the East, where many of the radicals in the party came from. Gauland supported them against the centrist wing, and he later expanded this approach, appealing to East Germans as the threatened majority. His initial rise also involved the outreach of Pegida, Patriotic Europeans Against the Islamization of the West. The organization's primary goal was opposing immigration by Muslims in Germany. When the AfD was only a party with small appeal concentrated within a regional base, he chose Pegida as the societal base to broaden the AfD's appeal. For this, he had to tolerate a charismatic figurehead with a questionable background involving drug abuse, Lutz Bachmann, to make use of Bachmann's appeal to Pegida, as he considered him a useful idiot. While Pegida's outreach was initially only limited to Dresden, the AfD absorbed this appeal later on and expanded it out of regional boundaries. In 2014 and 15, Gauland's Pegida investment paid off, as the AfD was able to mobilize right-wing protesters at the grassroots level to organize demonstrations in Berlin, a key left-wing stronghold. Notably, during this time, he would make a statement or two that were close to the boundaries of acceptability in mainstream German politics of what can be said to expand one's appeal. The Aydan Özos affair is a notable example of this, where he called for the SPD minister with a Turkish background to, quote, go back to Anatolia. Gauland's immigration strategy change gave its fruit in the 2017 federal elections. Him and Alice Weidel were elected as co-leaders to lead the party in the elections, and for the first time after decades, a far-right party entered the Bundestag. In 2021, he retired from all of his leadership roles in the party and the Bundestag, and the AfD declared him honorary president. Although he did not play an active role in the party from then on, he regularly comments on foreign policy matters such as the Russia-Ukraine war. Even though he said he would not run in the 2025 election for the Bundestag, he changed his mind and got elected. Gauland's personal past, his political start in the center-right, decryption of the left-behind East German voter, and his choice not to make the AfD a personal fiefdom all contributed to the party's current position as the oddity in Western European far-right parties, the ugly duckling of the continent's fringe.